Today we're going to be going over CS2 loadouts and what you should have in yours. There are a lot of different factors that can influence what makes you choose, one pistol over another or one SMG over another, and I'll try to go through all the different factors that could influence your choices. So let's get straight into it. This is a really cool spreadsheet that I've used in CSGO even, that still gets updated. As you can see at the top, it was last updated May 23rd, 2024. This is some of the really in-depth stats that you get when you look into to the game files, and Sloth Squadron is the one that made this. So very thankful for him. And that's kind of like how I determined even back in the day that I should be using the Krieg and the AUG. I think that there could always be something that we're overlooking. Definitely check this out. I think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff. You can nerd out and see if there's something that should be changed in the meta. Definitely let me know in the comments if there's something that's underutilized that you saw from the stats or anything like that. Starting off with the CT loadout, this is what I personally have. And I'll kind of go through the different reasons for why I have different things. And starting with just the CT pistol, the USP, as you can see also in the weapon spreadsheet, it is pretty much better in every way compared to the P2K. And I think most people should have this. I still like using the P2K sometimes just because I think it's a little bit tighter of a spread when you're spraying with it. And sometimes I just like playing like that, and it's nice that you have just so many more bullets. For pistols that I think that you definitely need to have, you obviously need to have a P250 and a Deagle in your loadout, just because they are so useful. There's so many rounds that are just won from, a Deagle or, having a P250, especially when you want to have different nades. There's a lot of different strats when you're, doing a force buy, and you need to have a P250 smoke, flash, and then armor. And you can only really afford everything if you have a P250. And now I think that these two are where you can kind of have some leeway of which one you want to include. And you could also have the dualies on here. Thankfully, I get a lot of dualies drops, so very thankful for that. The only one that I would choose out of this one to get rid of would be the CZ, honestly, because I think that the 5.7 is just too good. For $500, you're able to one-shot from very close range. When you think about how close range you are a lot of the times on these pistol rounds, you are able to get more utility because you're buying a 5.7 as opposed to a Deagle. Even if it is just a flash, that can be the difference maker when you're thinking about how you're going to win the round. Just having one more flash could be it. If you're not ever buying or dropping dualies, that the CZ can get you a lot of kills. Otherwise, I'd say for the majority of people, you probably should just have the dualies on. So this is probably more or less what I would recommend just in general, is to have this on, because the CZ I think is not the best choice for most people.
Before we continue, if you want to take your Counter-Strike abilities to the next level, then you need to check out refrag.gg. Refrag is the premier training tool available for Counter-Strike 2, with over 20 different modes that train you at each aspect of the game, from aim to counter-strafing, utility, and so much more. If you want to use the training platform that me and so many other players use, then you need to check out refrag.gg. And now let's get back to the video.
And now let's get into the mid-tier. So honestly, even for the mid-tier, I'm kind of whatever about a lot of these ones. As you can see, I even had a Negev. Even though I do think that the Negev is underrated, I would probably swap for the Nova here. So I would have the Mag 7, the Nova, and the XM. So pretty much all of the shotguns on CT side, because I think they're all really good. I am always going really back and forth between the Mag 7 and the Nova, and I honestly haven't done a lot of in-depth stats looking at which one is the better one. So again, if you guys do look at the spreadsheet and you check it out, let me know which one you think is better. And my two main choices these days have just been between the UMP and the MP9. Both of them are good for different situations, especially on second round forces right now. When you're getting $2,050, if you went with the MP9, you would only have the light armor and the MP9. So that is something to definitely consider. And I think that you should have both, because I think that they're both very capable weapons where they can two-shot headshot at close to medium range. And if we look at the other mid tiers, honestly, that there's not a lot of other choices that you'd want to go for. The MP5 is honestly just bad. Why would you have an MP5 when you could just have an UMP or an MP9? I think it's just more expensive for not that much benefit. P90 is just a complete troll gun, and that's pretty much it. These are pretty much the only things that you'd want to have. And lastly, for the rifles, we are going to have the FAMAS. Even if you don't like it, and I know that there's a lot of people that don't like the FAMAS, if you're forcing and you need to have a rifle, especially for different setups, not having it is just kind of troll in my opinion, because you're kind of forcing yourself to play in a certain way. Because if you don't have a FAMAS, then that means you probably have an MP9 or an UMP. And if you have one of those two weapons, you're forced into playing into a different style. Whereas if you had a FAMAS, you can still play close, but you can also now play a medium range type of setup instead. And now going in with, the 2 and 4s, I'd say that it's going to be a little bit subjective. What I mean by that is, if you look at these three options, these are the only three that can change. because you need to have an op. You need to be able to drop your teammates an op. If you're the operator, you obviously need one too. So everyone needs to have the op equipped. That's just 100%. And then between the M4, the Scout, and the A1, I think that you can kind of pick and choose between these a little bit more. Not the Scar, it's kind of troll, I'd say, because there's just other options that would be better. Like for example, the AUG. If I was an AUG user and I played in positions where I felt like the AUG would be very helpful to me, then I would have it on. So for me, this is the only one that would be changing, is the A4 for the AUG. I would only change it if my teammates wanted to get dropped an AUG. So just for their preference, I'll give that to them. And then with the Scout, I do like buying the Scout, especially like on second rounds on CT side. So I keep it equipped. If you're not someone that likes having the Scout, then it's pretty easy for you. Then you would just have the AUG instead of the Scout, and you have pretty much every weapon that you'd want. Now, getting into the T side, of course, we only have one starting pistol. That is the Glock. For the rest, kind of like the same thing I was saying on the CT side, the P250 is just too good. You need to have the P250, especially on rounds where you are really strapped for cash. For me, P250 is 100%, you need to have this. Deagle, 100%, you need to have this. And then you got the CZ and Tech 9. And honestly, there's not really any other options because you have the R8 and then you have the dualies. This is pretty much what everyone is going to have unless you're like an R8 enjoyer and you're just having fun with it. And now we get into the mid tier. So for the mid tiers, I think that, you know, Mac 10 is pretty much 100% you need to have. For 1050, I think that this is such a good weapon that is so versatile. And then if we look at the other weapons, that's another weapon that I've kind of just leaned into over the years, especially. And I think that it's just a very strong gun. As an SMG, kind of the same things I was saying on CT side, but T side, my perspective between buying like a Mac 10 or an is kind of, do I expect myself to be kind of running in there and jumping around and going with flashes, all that type of stuff? Or am I playing a very close engagement position like Banana on T side Inferno? Then I'll probably opt for the Mac 10. But if I expect myself to be doing like, you know, kind of close quarters, mid-range type of fights, not too long range, then I'll kind of go with the here. And then for the rest, these are kind of honestly just throwaway guns because you're never going to see me buying a XM on the T side. The MP5 is also kind of just like a throwaway. What else would you have there? And if you look at the other options, let's kind of just go through them. Like the MP5, it's not that it's necessarily worse, but time to kill for the MP5 is just not that good. If you're looking at how expensive these guns are and what you're getting out of them. And then if you look at the shotguns, there's honestly no situation where I'd want to have a shotgun on T side. That's just kind of troll. So that just rules out the Nova, it rules out the sawed-off. Honestly, the PP Bison would be even more of a better troll gun, so maybe I'll just put that in there. And now let's do rifles. So here we have the Galil, AK, Scout, Krieg, 99.9% of situations, this is going to be everybody's loadout. Galil is probably one of the most used weapons on force buys / low economy rounds. You're able to do everything an AK can, but for significantly cheaper. So anytime that you need to have a rifle and you need to have all of your nades, your smokes, your mollies, you're gonna buy a Galil because you don't want to just get sucked into buying like an or Mac 10 and you're forced into, you know, taking certain types of engagements. Otherwise, you're going to be in a tough situation. AK, it speaks for itself. This is the gun for like the past 20 years for a reason. It is just 100% necessary. Scout, the reason why I would kind of say that the Scout is like 100% necessary as well. There's just a lot of situations where you actually need a Scout, even if you're not the one that's buying it, because you need to be able to drop it to your opper. Krieg and G3 SG1. The G3 is actually really good on maps where you can do the wall bang. So if Cash ever came back into the pool and you can do that T-spawn to Z, which is like CT mid, wall bang, then 100% it is completely viable and really good. Now recently on Ancient, if you saw Rain, he did the same thing where you would do it on Cash, but he did it with House from T-spawn. So you're able to get just a very early pick if you have like a ton of cash. I would probably just have this on, even though most of the time you're probably not going to use a Krieg. There's a lot less choice here, I'd say, compared to like CT side. I think CT side, there's a little bit more things that we're thinking about in terms of like, you know, do I have dualies on here instead of the CZ? Do I not like the 5.7? Because I know some players just don't like the 5.7. I think that it's an interesting topic to think about, you know, what choices of weapon are we going to make? And that's why, you know, when I'm bringing up like the spreadsheet and stuff like that, you can find some interesting facts that kind of can be meta defining if you look hard enough. So hope you guys like the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.